This week on the SupaHuman Podcast.
Marketing's dead, our jobs are going away, generative AI is taking over everything. We don't quite share that sentiment.
How's New Zealand doing compared to other countries in terms of how they're embracing this AI technology?
If you don't have AI in your pitch deck, are you really going to be able to successfully raise at this moment in time?
Really interesting to me that came up yesterday was not necessarily around how we reskill and how we retrain. It's the other side of the marketplace, which was 87% of businesses that were involved in the Copilot trial consider Copilot as a competitive advantage.
Some of the kinks that are being worked out today is exactly where does that recognition fall? But that is totally the concept for these multi-party offers.
Ashleigh is a proud Canadian and founder and CEO of Transcends Marketing. The business focuses on channel marketing for the world's leading cloud providers. Having known Ash for the past 7 years, today we explore the history, current state, and the future of the MSP channel, considering the speed at which AI is changing everyone's world. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
I love talking about marketing. I also love talking about tech, and today is a tech marketing day. So, Ashleigh, you're in town.
Yeah.
Living in Canada right now, is that right?
Whistler is home, Canada,
Right, got
yes.
you. Okay, cool. So how long are you in little old New Zealand for?
Super quick this time, just a couple days.
Right.
But I do like to avoid the Canadian winters, except when I'm snowboarding,
Sure.
so I tend to winter in Queenstown.
Got it. Well, so you're in town for a pretty big deal. So do you want to walk us through why you're in town and the work you guys have been executing over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, great. I actually founded Transcends Marketing when I was living in New Zealand. So we are a Kiwi company. Today, much more of our business is in the US, as a percentage anyways of our revenue, but very, very close to New Zealand and the Kiwi entrepreneurs here. So what brings me this time is that our team has been working with Microsoft on the Microsoft AI Partner Innovate Roadshow. And it's a 5-city roadshow. We just did our last one in Auckland. Thank you so much, Dave, for being there. And it was great. We were oversubscribed. It was a beautiful day. It was gorgeous to see the viaduct. And I hope that everyone in the room yesterday took some great value from that experience.
For me, working within the Microsoft ecosystem for the past 8 or so years in the New Zealand market, it's fascinating to see that like energy within the channel. And, you know, the room was full yesterday of traditional managed service providers, ISVs, new world managed service providers who are kind of honing in on AI specifically, and just the whole narrative that Microsoft are bringing around, you know, this next level of hyper productivity, which is ultimately what the mission statement of Microsoft is. But the tone has definitely shifted from move to the cloud, migrate, biz apps to Copilot. And that's been the core theme of the AI partner roadshows. What's been your main, takeaway from the work you've been doing with Microsoft, and what's resonating most when people are looking at it for the first time from a partner perspective and going, okay, that's where the opportunity is?
With Microsoft, we were talking about modernization, and then it was digital transformation, and like you say, very focused on getting into the cloud. And now it's innovation. And really, from a product lens, that means AI for Microsoft. And if you have been to a Microsoft event recently, it's Copilot, Copilot, Copilot. I was at an event, and the keynote speaker had shared that there are now 97 products called Copilot within the Microsoft ecosystem. I think the most popular is the M365 Copilot, but definitely that's the opportunity. So as a marketing person, I often come from the lens of go-to-market. Microsoft is really aligning their investments for partners to that Copilot offering right now.
And Transcends Marketing has been supporting Microsoft and Microsoft partners you're a channel partner marketing organization, right, focused on the partner. And you've been on this journey with Microsoft to bring this to life, working within their internal GTM teams and then making this come true. The reality, though, is marketing for you guys is also changing, as in the way that you market, the way that you generate tone of voice, the way that customers are interacting with new product. So outside of what Microsoft are bringing that impacts customers and partners, how does it feel to be a marketer in 2024 when the whole tool chain that you use to execute what you do as a profession is being flipped on its head?
Yeah, I love it. It's an exciting time. It's definitely a time of change. I think that we're really fortunate to be a channel marketing agency with clients that are truly on the bleeding edge of innovation. Some of our clients are, for example, the #1 global Copilot customer. So we're right there watching how, from small and medium businesses, but right up to some of the world's largest enterprises, some of Microsoft's biggest partners are embracing this change. And as a marketing agency, we're really lucky. We have an energized team who's super hungry to learn. One of our values is always be learning. Another one, empowerment through technology. And we're just hungry for change. So we're doing things like, we had a customer ask us, for example, to take a high production video, maybe a $70,000 video, and how would we approach producing that for $5,000 using AI, and rebuilding an entire video production value chain with different AI tools and services and assessing those. And I think it's really interesting what's available now on the market, from AI voice to creating avatars to doing your scripting with generative AI. We're using many of these tools ourselves, and we're constantly assessing. I think some people tend to have the view that as marketers, marketing's dead, our jobs are going away, generative AI is taking over everything. We don't quite share that sentiment. One of the things that we do a fair bit of, for example, are technology award submissions. And I find that the language used in those awards, lots of acronyms, we love our acronyms in tech, whether that's ACR, Azure Consumed Revenue, SMC, small, medium, corporate. We wouldn't use generative AI to write an award submission, but we'd get really creative around things like asking for brainstorming ideas around what that narrative could be, or taking an award submission that we've written, of course, masking it for any personal and confidential information, but feeding that back into a tool like GPT to assess it against the award guidelines. How would GPT score that award submission against the criteria that we're submitting on? So lots of different ways that we're innovating, and yeah, I do think it's important to stay up to speed with it.
What's fascinating for me is the change that's going to occur in different industries outside of just the technology adoption. And what I mean by that is agencies, not all of them, but a lot of agencies and law firms, as another example, their unit of economics, which basically means how they make money, is time. And in a world where AI tooling essentially makes you hyper-productive, is it a case of just needing far more pipeline and work to keep your business at the same size? Or is this a case of we're going to need to see a fundamental shift in how people commercially wrap up their services? Because ultimately, if a $70,000 product to produce a video is going down to a $5,000 product, then of course there's cost which you're not needing to spend, but there still needs to be enough money on the table for people to maintain workflow. And what are you feeling that the future of marketing looks like in, say, the next 2 to 3 years in terms of how you bill and charge your clients? And is that needing to change along with bringing this tech into play?
So starting Transcends Marketing in 2018, we were a remote-first company then, born in the cloud company. And while we do track our time to get an assessment around profitability and how much we charge for our services, we have never, from day one, billed by the hour.
So you're banging the sweet spot at that point. So you're future-proof, future-ready. Let's take an industry like law firms, which it's fair to say there are some law firms that are disintermediating themselves or disrupting the market by bringing in fixed-price services, but still billed by the 6-minute increment, majority of law firms. How do you see those industries flipping to a time-based model?
Yeah, I do think that they are flipping to a non-time-based model. I think that it is a challenging time in some industries to reinvent themselves, and the most innovative of those are seeing that as an opportunity. We're lucky to work specifically in the legal segment, and it's just a different approach where we're now seeing project-based pricing, packages even coming out of law firms, so that it's no longer a time-based fee.
So living in Canada, working in the US a lot with US partners, customers, vendors, but also across multiple different countries. So you've got staff in every pocket of the world. How's New Zealand doing compared to other countries in terms of how they're embracing this AI technology from your perspective, from what you've seen on the roadshows, from also the sentiment that you have working with the different partners and customers?
Number 8 wire and punching above their weight. So cool moment was, it must have been 2018, 2019. I was in Singapore at the Microsoft offices waiting for the elevator to go up, and who steps into the elevator but a bunch of Kiwis who were all working in the AI space. And at the time, New Zealand was known within the Microsoft ecosystem as being very top performing in terms of AI innovation, and I think that continues today. Some of the work that we do with clients in this market is very much focused in that space. I do think that most businesses are trying to figure out what the AI opportunity is today, but there are some great examples in New Zealand of companies who have been at this for 5 years already.
It is interesting to see that there's a lot of noise and hype around generative AI or artificial intelligence as a broad spectrum of stuff and services. It does feel to me, though, that the ones that are shouting about it are the ones not necessarily doing something. And the ones to really watch out for are the silent achievers that are just getting it done. And I feel that we're going to be in this situation in 6 to 12 months' time where there's going to be some just monstrous businesses start to outperform because they've been just getting out and getting it done, as opposed to sat on LinkedIn, reposting stuff that is just, clickbait.
A big difference with the U.S. particularly and New Zealand is the amount of investor capital. And in the U.S., every pitch deck, this is an exaggeration, I'm sure, but if you don't have AI in your pitch deck, are you really going to be able to successfully raise at this moment in time? And if you don't have that pressure, that VC pressure, for example, I think that you would create a very different ecosystem. And in New Zealand, I do personally observe that work ethic. It's just nose to the grind, people actually figuring things out and getting something that works where there is product market fit, and maybe waiting a little bit later than, say, a company might in the US to release that. And it's often released at a level of maturity that's much greater.
In terms of how this narrative around AI adoption impacts Transcends Marketing, so you're working with predominantly Microsoft channel partners who are looking to grow their businesses, they're looking to de-risk their operations, they're looking to be more and more efficient. What's the key piece of advice that you would kind of shout from the rooftops about what they need to be taking heed of over the course of the next 6 months when it comes to, I guess, engaging with marketing properly to make sure that they're staying competitive when things are just moving so quickly?
I mean, one of Microsoft's big business priorities right now, and it's not just Microsoft, I mean, we do work across the ecosystem, and you're hearing this at AWS and GCP, is marketplace. We had the first generative AI offer in Marketplace following some big announcements early last year from Microsoft. And I think having that, whatever your AI offerings are, having them productized, having those packaged up and in a way that is ultimately, ideally transactable in a click and buy, put it in the cart sort of a space. I think that is a big takeaway. I mean, when we look at cloud spend and how much those dollars are lining up to marketplace transactions, again, whether it's an AWS, a GCP, or a Microsoft, you have the biggest customers, their biggest customers, the biggest companies on the planet with these massive cloud commitments that really enables spend on even smaller companies, global companies that have what is topical right now, really these AI offerings. So I do think that thinking about marketplace in your go-to-market strategy for an AI offering is really, really key. Another one is that if you're looking for things like marketing development funds, different programs and incentives to help you get to market, again, understanding what some of the hyperscaler business priorities are around their particular products, something like Copilot, for example, is where a lot of the funding and incentives are going to be aligned to in FY25.
And for those that are listening and are hearing us like riff on marketplaces, it's a common known entity for us because we've been in the game for a while. But I think it's worth unpacking why these marketplaces exist for the likes of Microsoft and GCP and AWS. And the fact is that it seems to me continually that Microsoft are looking to incentivize software providers or services providers to go, okay, all in with Microsoft and use their marketplace as a channel to market. And those marketplaces then enable Microsoft sellers to easily refer people to the marketplace to drive product, and also retire quota for those in Microsoft that are guaranteeing that dollars are being landed on Azure or other high priority workloads. And that's this commonplace and is the same practice across all cloud providers in your eyes, and that still is the place today?
That is still the place today, definitely. I think if anything, it's gaining momentum. Where we were seeing a few years ago, there were very few solutions in any of those marketplaces that would have been considered transactable. Transactable just meaning that you could really click, pay, put it in a cart, deploy. Think about buying an app on your phone. That would be a transactable experience. Now we're getting to critical mass with transactable solutions. It's a very different world than it was previously. There is a lot of supply, so marketplace two sides. There is a lot of supply now of transactable solutions, so it's even more important not only to have a transactable solution, but then one that's differentiated and that you're creating demand against.
Yeah, sure. And demand, in your view, is catching up to supply now, or there is more supply than there is demand?
It's a good question, and it would really depend on the particular company's solution that we're considering. So I don't know how many solutions are in, say, AppSource or Azure Marketplace today, but there are a lot. And I think the mistake that a lot of partners make is the set it and forget it. Putting something in Marketplace, it's not a light lift. There is a lot of investment that goes into getting something transactable in Marketplace, but that's not the end of the journey. It's really the beginning. And where we're doing a lot of coaching with partners today is not to treat Marketplace as, say, a landing page. You know, there is still a customer nurture journey that needs to take place so that by the time somebody at the end of this journey gets onto the shopping cart page, essentially, of your offer in Marketplace, they are actually ready to purchase and buy.
I mean, there was a transactable element of Marketplace from an AppSource perspective, which is Microsoft's, I guess, catalog of services for their marketplace. And then there was a services play as well. And the ability to list both is still pretty predominant. So there is absolutely space for service providers who build custom solutions, and there is room for SaaS providers as well. So the same lead funnel works both ways, I guess. It'd be definitely worth touching on the investment, not necessarily of dollars, but the commitment that these cloud providers require to kind of get onto these marketplaces, because it's not a short journey. There is grit and determination and training and certification required. In your experience, like let's talk about time and cost, in not necessarily dollars, but in terms of if we're going to commit to getting to this point where service providers can list on these marketplaces to drive AI workloads, which is ultimately what the hyperscale cloud providers want. What do people need to be considering in terms of investment, time, thought processes?
Yeah, there's a lot there to unpack. I don't know how much detail we want to get into, but marketplaces are great for both services and SaaS companies, so two different business models. If we're talking about the Microsoft ecosystem, a services company should really be looking at the solution plays, what Microsoft calls their solution plays, which are essentially their annual priorities of what that business is seeking to sell. And for a services company, you want to ensure that a Microsoft seller can retire quota against a given solution play. And what we're seeing more and more is that service companies are reworking their marketplace strategy to simplify down to handfuls of offers that are very directly aligned to quota retirement against those solution plays. In the SaaS or ISV world, very different. We're looking at transactable solutions. Now, one of the newer capabilities that all the hyperscalers are really prioritizing at the moment are something called multi-party offers, where a services and a SaaS company can come together in a multi-party deal. So essentially services wrapped around a transactable solution. So I think that that's a trend that we'll see more and more of going into FY25.
So in an example of that, and keep me honest with this one, it would say be SAP on Azure as a SaaS transactable play, and then another services provider that isn't SAP, but they are an SAP certified delivery partner, bundling that for their client. So there's two different people get paid ultimately, but
Correct.
The customer gets one solution.
Correct. Two different partners would get paid. Some of the kinks that are being worked out today is exactly where does that recognition fall. But that is totally the concept for these multi-party offers. when we're talking about getting ready and getting into marketplace, there's companies now that specialize in doing exclusively that. One in ANZ we love working with is Arcana. Another one globally, Tackle.io. So these businesses, WorkSpan, they really help partners in order to transact in marketplace and to make that quite seamless. It depends on your solution and the build, but as little as weeks to a couple months would be a typical SLA on a process like that. For a services partner who doesn't need to worry about that transacting engine, we build these offers as an agency. That's bread and butter business for us. And if we have the content, I mean, you can get something up and live in marketplace in 24 hours. It's usually the internal change management that takes the longer piece there.
I do believe as well that in terms of executing, getting to the marketplace, that last mile of going, okay, cool, let's get listed. It's a creative kind of journey, that last part of going, okay, cool, how do we get cut through? To get to that point, now Microsoft and the other cloud providers are really asking a lot of their partners to double down on certifications and training to get to that point.
Yeah.
So to in terms of priority on that marketplace, if you're carrying a partner designation, which is ultimately the tick for being trained and proving that you're executing, there is like ranking system's not the right word, but if you are committed to this provider and you've trained your staff and you're showing that you're getting runs on the board, the ability to kind of own your patch on that marketplace is pretty significant from what I understand. So it doesn't become the eBay of marketplaces. There is a ranking of who's good and referenceability and case studies, etc.
One sort of associated point to that, I would say, because we're sitting here in Auckland, is to know your geographic market. And so it can be more difficult for partners in smaller markets like the Kiwi market in comparison to the US market to get, say, the Azure dollars of recognition that maybe puts you globally at the top of the partner list. But there are lots of creative strategies and ways for partners to break through. And really, there's only so many checkboxes that you need to make a meaningful splash. And then it comes back to my earlier point, just about being proactive. And once you have that listing live, to not just let it sit there, but to look at marketing campaigns. And to bring this back to an AI place, now there are so many great marketing tools out there. And you would think maybe, because I'm an agency owner, but I truly believe in just empowering and enabling everyone to, as much as possible, be able to set up and do these things themselves. And you can get some automated funnels set up for you that are feeding leads into these marketplaces. And I think that that's something really great to consider.
Interesting. And to change tact a little bit, I'd be really interested in your view on the state of the channel. And I kind of mean this with a global lens, but also a Kiwi lens as well. The workloads for the last 7 years that Microsoft specifically have been driving and prioritizing have been originally was around Office 365 seat acquisition, and then it moved on to Azure workload migration, and now Copilot. How comfortable are you the fact that the current channel can deal with this next shift? Because it's very different in terms of its capability required to really get AI humming within an organization than what the channel is geared up to be, which is right now engineering led around managed service providers, availability engineering, workload management, such as operating systems and platform services. Where does it stop being a useful history that exists with, I guess, the legacy side of digital transformation, and then moving into these more advanced workloads, which the teams that exist right now, it's brand new to them. No one's an expert in AI really, because it's been around for such a short period of time. So what are your thoughts on whether this is an opportunity to build brand new businesses or whether it's an opportunity to change what the current channel looks like?
Well, first, I think you characterized that shift really well. And the Azure model was really a consumption model, like getting into the cloud. It was about getting dollars in data consumption. And what we're seeing right now with, say, Copilot is we're back into this cloud licensing space. And it is a very different business model. And I think that partners are looking and trying to figure out, and I think Microsoft is also trying to figure out what is that value add on top of Copilot? What do the add-on services look like? And this is a today conversation that's being had. In the room yesterday, Dave and I were both at the Microsoft AI Partner Innovate Conference in Auckland, and that was a question that's topical. Like, that is being asked today, is how do partners make this switch? I think they're really hungry for that knowledge. Microsoft is providing a lot of enablement and resources in that area, but we're still figuring it out.
Interesting that I don't know whether history is going to repeat itself, but if you look at what happened around the cloud migration era and the cloud adoption era, we'll call it the digital transformation era, if that is even a thing. There was a move of talent from, I operate data centers, I'm cooling, heating, power, racking and stacking servers, and then a majority of that talent that was engineering physical infrastructure moved to engineering virtual infrastructure. And they retrained, they reskilled, they became Azure certified, and they moved from racking and stacking and power to being able to operate essentially the hypervisor layer of Azure and orchestrate Azure environments. Are we going to see that same shift again, where there are cloud-capable engineers that are now going to become AI-equipped engineering? Noting that AI is a very distinct skill set, and you go specifically to university to do PhDs in this stuff, specifically around machine learning and AI capabilities. The speed at which you went from physical to virtual and then now cloud to AI, it's happening on probably a 10-to-1 rate of what it did before.
It's fast.
And we're going to see I just feel that we're going to see a talent squeeze really, really quickly. I actually did a LinkedIn search last week. There were 154 people in New Zealand that claim to be and are AI engineers. That's it, out of 5 million people. And the world we can't survive on that amount of talent. Now, of course, there's going to be people in and around that skill set that are going to have capabilities and skills. But how quickly we're going to need to kind of really flip into retraining and reskilling to meet the demand, because every organization is going to start to be employing chief AI officers, AI engineering leads, and we're going to need to pull talent in from overseas or retrain very, very quickly. And I'm just hoping that everyone's ready, because we're going to need to strap in to get that work done. And I think it will stall the innovation if we're not careful and businesses don't get ahead of that retraining opportunity.
It is a huge opportunity, and the time is now, and it's incredibly important. One of the speakers yesterday was saying, Copilot is 1% technology and 99% change management. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we're going through right now, is there's so much demand and need bridging into requirement for an understanding of how AI operates in order to do. It's not just technology jobs, which is the fascinating part. I mean, you opened up the conversation around legal, for example. These skill sets and the demand for that training is incredibly high right now. And the world-leading organizations have internal programs, and they are off to the races and have been off to the races with this for about 12 months now. And it's just incredible. I mean, one of our clients shared a stat that they had upskilled 91,000 people in the last 12 months on AI tool sets. And I think that those types of employers are going to be attracting mm-hmm. talent as well. Great people are going to go where they have that opportunity to learn and grow and develop in AI.
The piece that really, really fascinates me is that you're going to get this talent squeeze that kind of happened throughout the cloud, and then there's going to be a talent shift. The piece that was really interesting to me that came out of yesterday was not necessarily around how we reskill and how we retrain. It's the other side of the marketplace, which was the first stat that Sarah Bowden brought up on screen, was that 87% of businesses that were involved in the Copilot trial consider Copilot as a competitive advantage. Now, if everyone adopts Copilot, then there is no competitive advantage.
Correct.
And if the time to execute that change is far quicker than any of the technology transformations that we've seen before, then firstly, that's going to create two problems. One is people that don't adopt it are going to go out of business, worst case scenario, very, very quickly. Those that do adopt it have only got a competitive advantage for a short period of time. So where do you stop in terms of the thinking of AI and how you engineer it? Because Copilot is version 1 of AI, really. It's helping you be more productive at operating level in terms of getting stuff done for meetings, transcripts, helping you form brainstorming ideas. It's still yet to get it to a point where it knows your legislative environment, your business. There's a lot of engineering that needs to happen to do that. I'm really interested to see how people push the boundaries to maintain that competitive advantage. The tide's going to rise really quick, and some will drown, and some will. But everyone that's on top is going to have all the same tools as everybody else.
I was at an executive briefing at Microsoft in Seattle a couple weeks ago with a bunch of Kiwi and Australian partners, actually. The Microsoft team did a great job of putting that together. And in one of the sessions, they asked us to think 500 years in the future. And the proposition was thrown out that in 500 years, we will look back on this period of time as being the most rapid in terms of change. I've been reflecting on that a lot. I don't know if I personally believe that's true or not, but it's certainly interesting to reflect on. We are experiencing very rapid change right now. And looking at my clients, we have this interesting window into the world of innovation. They are sprinting. And a couple months ago, going to a big event, some of our clients presented on stage. Like, this stuff isn't theoretical. There were customers on stage talking about things like Microsoft Fabric, and it's been fully implemented, and here are the results that they're seeing today in terms of cost and time savings. So it is creating this frenzy of rapid change, but how much of that is hype? Are we going to go into this trough of disillusionment? I'm not so sure.
Well, that there's going to be a return on investment for those that actually committed to getting cloud right in the digital transformation era, and those that have got their data assets in a sharp position are going to be able to adopt the baseline capability of AI a lot faster. Those that are still hybrid or halfway through a transformation program, I think are going to really, really struggle to drive that. But interesting question. I think 500 years in the future. I'm not too sure that's a nice thought, to be honest. Not too sure it's a good thing. But you're right though, in terms of like the technology's meeting. Like, we're not changing the UI, if that makes sense. Like, it's not like Elon's turning up with Neuralinks and we're having to plumb stuff into everyone's 8 billion people's brains, which is not a rapid change activity. But the fact that it's the same input-output that we've all been used to, as in fingers and eyes to see the output, and the things that took us days, hours to execute are now taking us seconds to execute. Like, the time to impact for the standard working behavior is just so rapid. Even with the last big technology adoption, so if you went to email, for example, and the internet, like, you need to enforce how people changed, how people did stuff. Whereas this technology and AI, you're not changing people's behavior necessarily. You're just showing them that there's the ability to remove the soul-crushing work. And if you remove the soul-crushing work, no wonder people get excited about it, because they get time back. They can de-stress. They can focus on the cool stuff in life until everyone's got the same tools, and then it goes back to the same again, because the expectation will be crazy levels of productivity. So I don't know. I just probably shouldn't ponder the question of 500 years into the future. Too much.
I do like to be, by choice, on the optimistic side and think about the creativity that can enable. Yep. I mean, we see that with our team today. I went to everybody in the company and asked, how are you using AI today at work? I'm going to have this chat with Dave and give me, how is this really operating in the day-to-day at Transcends? And it was cool to hear the different answers that came back. And some of them were a lot around brainstorming of creative ideas. So we're a marketing agency. We come up with marketing campaigns. And just getting the ball rolling on a breakthrough idea for a very niche audience. We now do that a lot with generative AI to get those conversations going. And it's typically a starting point. But I think that that's really cool, because if you could ask my team if they would rather be in a brainstorming session of big creative ideas or doing the drudgery of building out Excel databases of customer audiences, they're going to choose the first all day.
How do you see the difference between rapid ideation, as in getting to a starting point, and then like true creativity. So what I mean by that is AI is a prediction engine. That's what it is. It's predicting what you want, and it's got a large amount of information to do that. It's only working off what it previously knew, and it's showing you things that you may not have known, but it knows, which is great. So it's sparking inspiration from other things that it already knows. But that true creativity, the moment where there's something that needs to be created that has never existed before, do you think that on a macro level, and I'm thinking 500 years out at this point, does it stifle human creativity at the genius moment of like someone's not going to come up with the next? I don't know what it would be, but I'm trying to think of if you're only getting ideas from things that have happened historically, then how do you imagine what's never been? Does that make sense?
On the fear side, machines talking to machines, and this I don't know if you've heard in the news, lots of headlines today, or the internet is dead, right? There's some projection, you'll have to fact check this, but I think in 2026, 95% of the content on the internet is going to be made by robots. That's bleak. And I would really hope that genesis of creation, that there is a place for humanity ongoing in that. And certainly we do see that today. I mean, in writing, you have your shitty first draft. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know that expression. And I'm a procrastinator. ADHD, it's, can be really difficult to put pen to paper. And generative AI helps tremendously solve that particular challenge. And there's usually seeds of something in a shitty first draft that Gen AI might produce. But the real creativity and ideas comes in the thinking that is applied on top of that. Will it get to a place where we no longer need to do that? Maybe.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I sit in the camp of it's a huge productivity gain, and it allows me the time to do the creative thinking. So I'm absolutely there. And as for the whole of my career and education, I was never an academic. Super dyslexic and never succeeded at those kind of pieces. It makes me look and feel like I know what I'm talking about, which has got to be, not to sound like I know what I'm talking about, but you know what I mean. It's very, very good at leveling up people's skills and allowing people to use the right parts of their brain. So we've covered Transcends, we've covered how you guys are approaching the market, the work you're doing with Microsoft, what's happening in 500 years. We've covered some ground, and I don't want to take up any much of your time. So, Ash, thanks for joining us. Safe travels back to Whistler. Enjoy summer, because summer's coming up.
Around the corner.
Summer's coming around the corner. And it'd be good to keep track of where you guys are at. And next time we're in country, come and join us back on the podcast again.
Thanks so much,
cool.
Dave.
Awesome.
Pleasure.
Thanks a lot.